Well, welcome everyone. We'll call this public hearing to order. Let's start off by standing and pledging to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of this public hearing is for the purpose of accepting grant funds. This is a birth through 8 grant fund, a community schools grant through the University of New Hampshire. The school district was awarded awarded $162,500. We now have the ability to also have 10,000 beyond that as well, if we have the need for that. So up to 172,500. The work that we have already started to do for the grant, things such that you've seen advertised, such as the collaboration with the library for the Wednesday events that take place now for infants. That's over in Jaffrey. Both the RMS and JGS are going to have events in collaboration with the River Center that is going to work with parents of children who have 3 and 4-year-olds. I believe that the event in Ringe is now likely to be at the community center downtown due to space issues, and Jaffrey Grade School, it will be at the school itself. And we've also had several events that have been advertised that have already been ongoing, but also going on in the future throughout the entire spring. Most of the work is happening this spring with the Harris Center as well. All that has been open to the community, bringing people from the community, people who have been showing up to these events, either have kids within the school, or they are homeschooled, or they have kids in private school. So it's open to all families who fit into those categories. Other things that would be basically reimbursed to the district that would be paid for the grant would be the high school learners who currently are working and getting paid for their, I guess you could say, paid internships that they're having over at the Little Oriole Center. That is funded through this for this year, and a variety of other birth through 8 initiatives, some of them having to do with the science of reading, or the literacy initiative that we talked about earlier this year through the budget process, making certain that we have all the professional development, the tools and so forth that we can get early for pre-K, which isn't really part of the K through 8 process that we approved earlier. But pre-K, making sure that they have all the literacy-based supplies and resources that they need. And we might be able to do some professional development that would help support grades K, 1 and 2 as well. Again, birth through 8. So that's what the grant is to be used for. It's to be used for kind of seed money to be able to start some initiatives that we wanted to do and try to get them to be sustainable. The work with the River Center is going to be sustainable, and we're very happy to bring that level of support, I think is the best word, support to the community and families. I believe that Susan Shaw Sarles, who is the former principal over at Jaffrey Grade School, is online tonight, and she is the person who is managing this grant, along with Leanne from the department here in the business office. But Susan is a coordinator and does all the reports and so forth for making sure that we're doing the right thing with the money. I didn't know if Susan, if you wanted to say a few words, as we don't have any in-person public.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
And
Hi.
online.
Yep.
So this has been just a joy to explore with this grant, to be out and about in the community, talking with people who are, doing wonderful things on behalf of young children and families and are very eager to coordinate with the school district to enhance both of our programs. So, as Ruben said, I think some things are beginning to happen that will be good long-term investments for the district as far as time and energy and collaborative efforts to um, really look after not only the children within the walls of our school, but recognizing how much of learning starts even before they come to our doors and building upon that. I know I've learned a lot even after many years in schools and working with young children. Um, I've learned a lot through this process of what's available in our communities. So I think we have some great things happening that can only grow with our continued efforts and interest in this area.
Thank you, Susan. Are there any other comments that from the public, and the public would be on, well, we do have some public in person and other public online.
No hands raised.
Do we have any questions or discussion from the school board?
Yes. So I was curious as to whether this grant will, is the work that's being done, I know that you're well into the work, but are you looking at the problem faced by parents who, they're under increasing pressure economically, work makes it hard for them. The cost of daycare makes it hard for them to feel like they've got their child in a place where it's really cared for adequately. Does this grant anticipate trying to address that kind of issue?
So the grant is really for starting things up, starting thinking, starting the dialogue within our community. Now, we did that, I think we started that dialogue several years ago, really led by Susan and Charlie, relative to the pre-K, the full day pre-K. And we knew that part of that, part of it is about the research having to do with learners who start in quality pre-K, they do better in life in general, and also add value to the community in a variety of ways down the line. The other reality is that exactly what you stated. There are a lot of individuals who would still be paying for their children to have childcare or daycare during that time frame. And we know that the average cost for a 4-year-old roughly is $1,100 to $1,300 per month. And if you're going to keep your spot, you're paying all the way through the year. That's a lot of money. And though the goal is for any childcare is to be in that kind of 7% of salary, we know that people are paying a lot more than that, upwards of 20-25% of their salary. So we are providing an enormously important benefit to the families, the parents of these kids within our community as well, allowing them to work, allowing them to feel peace of mind as they work, and then sometimes are getting overtime and so forth that they wouldn't otherwise get. And while their kids are at school, they know they're safe. And so we're very pleased at the work we're doing there. We know that the Little Oriole Center is providing significant resources for our staff here. We know that we do have evidence that we have retained staff as a result of that. That is an enormously important factor here, especially this day and age with the hiring climate. Plus, we have such wonderful teachers. We want to keep them here and continue to build our culture. So that's been great. We were able to do that at a cost that is significantly less. We're not looking to make money on that. We're looking to cover our costs. This year, we certainly needed some grant funds to be able to help us get a lot closer there, and to also make certain that we could start that other side of things, which is getting our learners to be involved in the educational process and taking responsibility. We only want to increase that. That alone is starting to address the national need, but we'll talk local and state, the need for childcare workers. And then if there's anything that we can do to continue to collaborate with the community and these other, if we build more partnerships and so forth, to be able to help families find or have or build more affordable childcare for them and their children. And affordable quality childcare is important. Then we will certainly do that. We are apart from the grant, although because as we've had conversations with a variety of like the river partners, like the Harris Center, the River Center, the library, which the library is part of a town. We've also started to have other conversations with the Rotary, with the town of Jaffrey, for instance, to address an issue that's related to what you talked about for kids who are 5 and up in the elementary school over at Jaffrey Grade School. How can we provide after school programming for them so that they're taken care of, so that they're engaged, so that they're benefiting from co-curricular, extracurricular activities while their parents are able to be at work, come back in a non-rushed way, pick up their kids, and then have an enjoyable, less stressful evening at night. So that deals with the economics as well as the social implications of the family unit, which is important. So we're having those conversations. I think we're making some good progress with those conversations. I don't have anything definitive to report out about that, and it isn't tied directly with this grant for this hearing. But you'll hear more about that as the probably within a month. This is time.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions?
How many students are being served in the Little Orioles? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I think we're up to 15 right now. Now that's not all full-time. So I think we're at 10 full-time. We do only have 2 full-time staff members right now. We're looking to hire another one. We are going to probably change that to a school year position though, for next year. So we're in the throes of building curriculum, looking at how we communicate, changing up some of our practices, getting outdoors more, doing a lot of hands-on learning. It's not just a daycare, it's a learning center. And so we're excited about the progress that we're making, and we've got some great people working there. And the kids are neat too. All right, seeing that is, there's no other comments or questions. What we're going to do is we're going to close this meeting. We're going to open up the board meeting. During the board meeting, I would ask that the board consider making a motion, a board member consider making a motion to accept the up to $172,500 in the community schools grant that it received as unanticipated revenue. Yes. Thank you. All right, we're going to close this meeting out. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
And now we'll bring the school board meeting, we'll call that to order. We have pledged to the flag already, so we won't do that again. But the first order of business before we do anything else is to decide on a new chair and vice chair of the school board. And then that person who is a chair will then run the meeting and will ask for the motion regarding what we just did. So do we have any nominations or anyone who wants to motion to nominate someone for the chair of this school board for the next year?
I would like to make a motion
Okay,
to nominate Chris Ratcliffe as the next chair of the school board.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Charlie seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote on that. All in favor of Chris Ratcliffe being the school board chair for this upcoming year, starting in just a few minutes. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Chris, you are the chair by a vote of you voted, right?
I did.
7-0-0. He voted for himself. Good. 7-0-0. And you can, the next order of business would be to do the exact same thing we just did, but for the vice chair. And then take the meeting from there.
Excellent. All right. So we'll get started. Thank you very much, everybody. First order of business.
Ask for nomination.
Turn off my phone.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to ask if anybody has a nomination for the vice chair of the school board.
I make a nomination for Christine Pressman to be the vice chair.
All right. So Kim has nominated Christine Pressman as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion on this matter?
Charlie, are you okay with this?
Yeah, Mark, you seconded before I did, so.
All right.
Thank you.
You just weren't here when we discussed it. I want to make sure everything's good. All right.
Any discussion? All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And abstaining? All right, so that motion passes by a vote of 7-0. So congratulations, Christine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Congratulations.
Thank you both for stepping up.
Yeah, and I'll just say again, before we get started, thank you to John and Charlie for serving for the past year. I think you've provided a good example, and I know that Christine and myself will certainly be leaning on you guys as well as everybody else in the board, in the near future as we navigate the next year. So, genuinely, sincerely appreciate the effort you guys have put in, and you've been a great model to learn from. So I hope to live up to your standard, John.
Thanks.
Better will get you everywhere.
Right? Okay, so that being concluded, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add to the policy list, policy BIB, board stipend updates.
Is that BID,
BIB.
BIB? Any other changes to the agenda to propose?
I would like to add a motion to accept a grant for $172,500. Is that the right amount?
Yep, so up to
Up to
$172,500 in this community schools grant.
community school grant and accept it as unanticipated revenue.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I know we just discussed that, but is there any further discussion on that issue? Nope. In that case, let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion,
Aye.
signify
Aye.
by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
I
And
have to abstain, I think. Yeah,
all those abstaining?
aye.
Okay, so we have 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstain. Very good. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have public comments. So I know we have a few people here in the audience. I don't know how many people online, but could you please open it up for public comments? We can hear that. I will make a note for those in the room and for those online. Please be sure, of course, to state your name and your town of residence. It's certainly helpful to our for our minutes when they go and review and put them together for that to be stated clearly.
Three dots.
You can see up on the board, we have public policy comment. Are we seeing anybody raising their hands for public comment?
People have been informed and nobody's raised their hands.
Yes.
I have a
Lisa.
public
The
comment.
public comment.
Yes, Lisa
Okay.
Wiley Ringe. So at the candidates night, we had a good question that I couldn't answer, and I thought this is an appropriate time to seek out the answer. And it doesn't have to be immediate, but I do know from the candidates night and from the election that there actually are quite a few people who view our minutes and view our board meetings offline, off hours, and they're I do want to do a commendation that there were quite a few comments of praise for our transparency and the amount of information that we provide online and how often we update it, and that we are very active as far as making sure that the public has full access to our information. And that was very gratifying to hear. I feel like we work extremely hard to do that. And I feel like it's really starting to really be seen. And I think after this election, it's going to be even more so. Like I'm seeing more and more people saying, check this out, which is exciting. So the question that was asked was how many students we actually do have in our district and how much it does cost per pupil. So we talked a lot about the state's response to, or the state's lack of response to the New Hampshire Supreme Court saying that we are negligent, that they are negligent in funding our students. And so the question was asked, how much does it actually cost? So I thought I'd bring that before you guys so that we could have that on record at some point. I don't know when those answers can be gotten, but at least it'll be on record as current. I know we've talked about it in the past, but it'd be good to just have those numbers on record.
Yeah, certainly. When as John's pulling it up right now, I guess I can speak a little bit on this. Ruben, you can maybe correct me. I know that the enrollment number, changes, month to month. I think for this current year, it was around 1,250, I'll say, give or take 10 or so. We can get those exact numbers. And as far as our cost per pupil, I know that it's been certainly trending upwards, but still below the state average. I know that the last few years, it's been around $18,000. I still think we're below the state average around, I think just below $20,000, but we can get those numbers and then publish it going forward with the latest budget.
I have to laugh because my computer isn't, the screen doesn't want to move. I've got something going on. But we're about $1,000 below the state average in cost per student. And it has gone up. The cost out for our district is right around 19,000 now. In some neighboring districts, it's quite a bit higher than that. But again, we're below the state average by about $1,000.
Yeah, I think the state average just passed $20,000 per student for the first time this year. And, we're below that at 19 something, but we'll be sure that we publish that data.
So I say something. I think that the issue is one of not as much what is calculated and published as our cost per pupil, but how it's calculated. Because what the public does is they look at the $32 million divided by 1,250 students, and they come up with a number that's a hell of a lot bigger than what we post. So what we should be doing, in my opinion, is to actually look at what it costs everyone, including the state, the local taxpayers, and so forth. And my suggestion would be to break it down without special ed, so that you can look at what the cost per student is, baseline, and then if you add the cost of special ed to that, what the incremental amount is for special ed. Because that demonstrates two things. One is what our true cost per student would be if we did not have special ed. And number two, the amount of cost that we have with special ed versus what we're getting in terms of support from the state. So I think those are numbers that more closely show what we're doing and that people could understand. Well, today we can see our cost per student is 18,000, but then we got to put, does that include transportation or not transportation? Does, what does it include? What doesn't it include? So. think it's
I
a lot
would
easier.
agree, but I'm also wary of that too. I think what you just said about breaking down not just special ed, but also putting in a little transportation, putting in food, putting in the things that, those big ticket things. I would be hesitant to simply break out special ed just in case that could somehow become discriminatory, and be felt that way. So why are we spending
That's,
so much
that's
money
the
on it,
point. The
you know?
point is that we have a lot of mandates around special ed
Mhm.
that cost the taxpayers a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we need to show them that so that they have an issue with that. And they don't want to fund that anymore. Instead of being discriminatory, what they do is go to the state because it's all state mandate.
Yeah.
And that's, that's my opinion.
If I can jump in, I think that you're both right. When you talk about issues relating to sensitive topics, you have to be thoughtful, and I think that we need to do that. But we also need to provide the information because there's a lot that people don't understand, and it's hard to blame them for wondering what's going on if they take the number of students and divide it by our budget, and they say, hey, this is different than what they're telling me. So like this data, the 19,000, that's based on, I guess 2 years ago. It doesn't include this year's budget, and it's based on the budget from last year. Now, the state makes certain decisions about how they do the calculation, just like we have certain decisions about what constitutes a default budget. It's dictated by law, so, we need to explain that. And then just one other comment I would make. We provide special ed services for private schools, homeschoolers, and charter schools. We also provide recreation and sports and many other services for all learners in our district, whether they go to a private school, homeschooled, or whatever. And so when you look at our cost per student and just divide by enrollment, that doesn't give the whole picture.
I think the more transparent, the more trusting people are, the more information you give, the clearer it can be, and I think that always speaks volumes.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think now is probably the perfect time to go and do that, given that our budget is now approved. We'll be going through and approving these documents and providing, as much data and information to the public as we can is the right thing to do because the public is smart, right? If you give them the data, they can figure it out. And I think in the next few weeks, we should make that available, publish it, update it on our webpage and, however else we want to get it out. That's good. It's good feedback, Lisa. Any other discussion on this topic? Are there any other public comments? Anybody online or in the audience tonight? Oh,
Yeah, I just have a question. When you're looking at enrollment, are you looking at the beginning of stuff?
yep. Please.
That's the McLean and Jeffrey. The question I have is when you're looking at enrollment, are you considering reporting on the beginning of the year numbers? Which is what we report to the state? Or are we looking like for active updates of enrollment counts? Because enrollment changes.
Yeah, I think no matter what my opinion, no matter what we report, we should just be clear on when the data was taken, right? You take it today, you could take it at the beginning of the year. I think for state purposes, for that calculation, right, we give them what we provided the state. Certainly does change. And
For comparison purposes, year over year, the October number is consistent.
Right.
thank you, Leslie. Any other comments? on this or any other topic? All right, if not, we will move to Maddie Belafato and the student representative report. Go ahead,
Hi.
Maddie.
Thank you. So last Thursday, we had our Night of the Arts performance. I got there a little bit earlier, before the concert, and I saw a lot of engagement with teachers and, a lot of engagement with parents and learners. You can still see most of the artwork up around the school, so even if you're just walking to class every day, you can see what learners have worked really hard for, and I think it's really cool. It was nice to see all that engagement, because parents got an understanding of what their children are doing in school, and teachers got to explain different projects and like how students benefit from learning what they did. And it was like a wide variety of talents. There was paintings, drawings. I know there was STEM projects. I believe there was the fashion arts and culture class also had a project that was presented. So I think it was really nice to see the variety of different classes that were presented. And then we had our concert later that night. I think it went really well for all of the groups that performed. I know everybody worked really hard for that. And it was nice to see. There was definitely a bigger turnout this year, compared to our other concerts. And I think that is because we had the night of the arts performance right before. So there was families that just tagged along in the prep to see the performance. It was really nice having the community support more than we usually have. The Conant Band performed in the Jaffrey St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was really nice. We always try and do as many parades as possible. We're really welcomed by the community, and it's nice seeing the community come together and celebrate a holiday like that. We just had the blood drive last weekend, I believe, and I heard that it went really well. We got a lot of signups initially, and then we get walk-ins, and we had volunteers going from Interact. So a lot of people have worked really hard for it, and it really helps the Red Cross. So we're glad to take part of that. I think that's that's all I got.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. All very good. Any questions for Maddie this week?
I just like, that's awesome about the blood drive. How often do you do that?
We do it like 2 to 3 times a year.
Right? Very great thing.
Maybe you are the best person to answer this. Has there been any discussion about the schedule coming out for next year and planning for the schedule for next year and
Well, since I'm a senior, I'm not like huge into the next year's schedule planning, but
why, Maddie?
but I know, like my sister, they sent out the course selection a couple weeks ago. I think it was right before break happened. So learners got to pick their courses, and then I know guidance has been working with that. So I'm not sure what else they have to do or what the schedule is going to look like. I'm not even sure what classes are being offered next year, but I heard that it went pretty well.
It's just gone.
Yeah.
The senioritis.
Cool. Thank you. That's great to know that the process is active and become.
Lisa, just for clarification, were you thinking more about that or more about the calendar, like the school?
No, I
school
was thinking
calendar?
about course selection.
Course selection, all right. I have a question about the calendar, just because you're here, and we're going to be going over this later in the meeting. So, and I think this is a little bit different. I'm sure we'll discuss it, but during Christmas, we're going to have, potentially two straight weeks off, right? I think that sometimes that varies. This year, we have the opportunity to do that. From a student perspective, I guess, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm definitely pro vacation.
Do you think you accurately represent the view of the students in saying that students would be okay with, 2 full weeks off instead of going back on a Thursday or coming in on a Monday?
It'll be an adjustment, but I'm sure they'll be able to tolerate a few extra days
Okay.
of vacation.
They'll still need to go to school the same amount of days,
Yes.
but That's something we'll be discussing later. All right. So we've noted the student opinion on that matter.
It's a good one.
Later.
There might be classes. We could use a few extra days of vacation.
See you done.
Yeah, all right.
I do appreciate how many times you mentioned the word community in your student representative report. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, is that you've had, as a student, you've had some good interactions with the community.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a good representative of Conant High School. I mean, that's cool that you're out. You are able to represent the school in so many different capacities. And that you're welcoming people in. It's
Yeah.
really pretty
It's
awesome.
it's a cool position to be in, to be able to like work in the school and learn in the school, and then I go outside with different clubs and activities, and I get to see how the community engages with that.
Yep.
And it's been really positive so far.
Fantastic. Thank you.
What a great representative.
Very good. Anything else for Maddie? As our student representative report wraps up? All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
Maddie.
you.
I will say, going forward, right, you only have a few months left,
I know.
but I want you to feel free if, you have issues that you'd like to bring forward. We're happy to discuss it here, and maybe we'll take some assignments, or maybe we'll give some back to you.
Okay.
All right. But I definitely appreciate the feedback, and I totally agree. Night of the Arts was a great night. It's great to see the band out there, as they always are, in St. Patrick's Day Parade. There's certainly a lot of students that are putting in many hours, students and staff that are putting in many hours outside of the core school day. And I'm glad that you got the feedback that you guys deserve, certainly. All right, so moving on to item 5 on the agenda, the superintendent's report. I hand it to you, Ruben.
I was at the night of the arts and the performances. I didn't get to see portions of it because I was in some other meetings here and there, but I was able to get to the last performance, the hour and a half or so, to see 6th graders up there. Well, I saw some singing, but then the band came in and they had a fairly large transition time frame. There was like a lot of downtime, but then we had they got up there, the 6th grade did their thing by themselves, got a lot of 6th graders who are playing instruments. That's really neat. And then the rest of the middle school came in, and then we saw some nice blended high school with some middle schoolers, because I think we have some middle schoolers actually taking classes up here for music, a lot of variety. It was great. And so it was nice. I would agree. It was the first thing I noticed was, wow, there are a lot of people here. It was very well attended, lots of seats out. The new floor covering that was used for that event, as well as for, I believe, the Saturday town meeting that took place, which I heard was successful here, is very nice. I think it provides a much calmer and
Yeah, I don't know if it's supposed to be sound dampening.
it's not, it seems that way, doesn't it though?
I think
But
it's used for the blood drive too.
it's nice and clean. Yeah, it was for the blood drive as well.
Because I remember
Yeah.
seeing something different. It was nice.
Easy to put down. It's just
Okay.
really, it's really great. And it's just another thing that we're doing to just make, small improvements. Small improvements, maybe it's not that small, it's actually fairly large. Walk into the school building here today, and maybe you saw that this evening, the new sign that was out there. And I think that's really classy. I wouldn't call it beautiful. I would call it tasteful. And that it stands out. And I think that's really a powerful sign. And I think also there will be a new one that is going to go on the Pratt as well. Lighting has to happen there, but that will one step at a time. Yeah, it takes time to get this work done. Other neat innovations that are taking place, again, are with our partners. I've presented that in weeks past with Franklin Pierce University. We were mentioned in we were highlighted in one of their publications over there, and that they've given us permission to put on our social media. So within the next couple of days, you'll see something come out having to do with some work that was done over at Ringe, where they have a once a week or after school programming for writing books or creating stories. Those individuals over there, 4th and 5th graders, are going to be then after a month or so, I think in the month of April, going over to the college and actually recording some podcasts. That's all going to be made public. So we're getting some nice products over at the Jeffrey Grade School. They're not doing that piece with to the extent with having to do with literacy and working with college kids. They're working with college students and also the professor, Dr. Tom Bennett, on inquiry scholars. So they're focusing on research and researching areas that they're interested in. That's also 4th and 5th. That happens during Thursdays during the school day. And so it's accessible to those individuals who want to do that. No one is made to do it, but there's quite a few individuals. So similar events happening, different types of subject matter, and they too will have a product that they're going to provide. They're going to actually make those professional looking presentation boards, from the college. The college is going to help, and they're going to do a small community or maybe with their parents presentation of, walk around. You'll all be invited to go around and see what they've learned and talk to them and so forth. So we're excited to get that going again. Both of those schools are doing some literacy nights that are run by the FPU students. So we're excited, and that's going to be in the month of April. So want to welcome a new board member here tonight. So Sandra Stewart is over there, not Samantha. I've heard that name, went out there once or twice, and so we're really excited to have you here tonight. And this is a fun board, and we know it's a fun board because last week I was given a call by the director of the NHSBA, New Hampshire School Board Association, letting me know that the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School Board has been named the 2024 New Hampshire School Board of the Year. So you are all going to be invited to the School Board of Excellence award ceremony in June of this year. You get a bell. I don't know if they give individual bells, probably not. They probably give one to the school, but we'll see if you get there, they're like, this big. Someone has to give a speech of some sort, but you're only allotted like a minute. So it works out really well. Probably not for you, John, but had to do that as I get criticized a few times for being long-winded. So I was able to give a speech last year, and I made it in the time frame that they gave it to me. So it was good. I did have to rehearse it quite a bit though to make sure that happened. We continue to push on and innovate with what we've talked about during our budget season. As we know, the budget needs to be reflected in the work that we do. And so the restorative classroom work that we're doing, we continue to over at the Jaffrey Grade School to expand that. Today, we talked about the development of a job description for who we're going to be hiring for that position or looking to hire for that position. We also started to talk about the development of a handbook policy that the board would look through, authorize, and adopt. Not policy like we would look at tonight, but the handbook policies that go into play. That should happen during the summertime. I've gone after some other grants to try to fund some of the work that needs to be done there. I think that's a good chance that will likely happen. There is an interesting little blip that we have to deal with that. It has to do with growing that program. The best place to have it is on the second floor of the facility. Most elementary schools aren't 2 floors anymore. And the reason for that is because certain populations within your school, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, aren't supposed to be on the second floor unless they have their own designated escapement, in a sense, in the area of the building. So in the room, from the room, whatever. So we'll be talking at a facilities committee meeting to talk about what our options are there. We met with the fire chief, the Jaffrey fire chief, along with the fire marshal who's over in Peterborough today, and they gave us some ideas. So there's always something exciting. And so we'll talk more about that later. We would need to get some thoughts from an architect as to how we should go about, doing some things. This Wednesday, actually Tuesday, tomorrow and Wednesday, slightly different, but same topic. We talked about the need to get a new core reading program or reading materials and so forth for K, or in this case, pre-K through 8. And so we're actively continuing on. We have a committee that's been working on that. Tuesday, I'm going to be Zooming with a school over kind of on this side of the state that is implementing one of the programs that we're looking at. They're excited, talking about the growth that they've had within the year. We're going to a different school in the area. We're going to the Henniker Community School to see the implementation of that very same program set of materials and learn about their process of why they chose that, what their difficulties have been, and what they would do differently, but also just, a lot of why, what made them go in that direction with that particular one. There are really about 6 to 7 options out there, and some of them probably aren't the best for this school district. So we're down to kind of like 3 or 4 options. And so a group of individuals from the elementary school and the middle school are going to be able to go and see this in action on Wednesday. So that's great. Tonight, I'm actually sending a video to all of the individuals on this committee to talk about the difference between balanced literacy and structured literacy, and what the research talk is about literacy, and what the LETRS training is all about. Many of them are in that training, which is funded by the state, or they're signed up for it. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the not just the materials, but the instruction needed for our learners to read at the level by the end of 3rd grade that we would want. So really, the science of reading would suggest that there's 90 to 95% of individuals, if given the proper time and instruction, can be proficient by the end of 3rd grade, beginning of 4th grade. So that's not where we're at. And so we need to be moving toward that direction. I think that is a good update for tonight. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything. We continue to work with CTE, the architects on CTE and so forth, but we'll talk more when I have more information relative to that.
Great. Any questions for Ruben?
I would just say, thanks for the update, and it's really interesting on the selection of that literacy tool, how much is involved in it, how carefully you're going about it. So it's exciting to see that that's going to come to our elementary schools.
What I'll say is that, well, and the middle school, so the elementary and the middle are in 2 different places. They have 2 different sets of backgrounds. And it's been interesting as a result of all the curriculum work that the middle school has done over the past several years, how that kind of shifts the lenses. And then the elementary has different types of needs. And so they look at things through a different set of lens. And so really, as we go approach, whether it be literacy or any other set of materials or any programs or any type of ideas that we want to implement, we want to go through and look at the research. So we want to, first of all, make sure that we're using a change process that our board, would agree with, and looking at a strength-based approach, trying to improve and continue to innovate, and understanding that changing one aspect affects every other aspect. So you have to look at everything at the same time. We want to look at the research that John Hattie has done out of Australia, who he's well known throughout the world right now on his meta analysis of hundreds of thousands of research documents, all of them quantitative, about what the best practices or what the best leverage points are for education and how to raise student achievement. And then you want to look at the research on reading. The research on reading is extensive. and the brain research that has been done over the last couple of decades is very, very clear. So we can't ignore that. We have to, if we have not already, we have to, or let's put it this way, we have to continue to shift in that direction that is going to be best for our kids. And so, those items are what we have to look at. And it's sometimes the decisions are hard and a little bit different than perhaps what we have perhaps been used to in the past.
How so?
Well, I think that if your goal in the past was to say, we're going to get a core reading program, let's take, maybe you want to have a basal, right? And that was the choice of the district, which was the choice of the district many years ago. You went with Literacy by Design. Literacy by Design is an all-inclusive program. You would use that and you would do it with fidelity and so forth. And that was the idea. When No Child Left Behind came out, that was a very popular approach to take. Also I would say, during the early 2000s, well, the 90s, the early 2000s, and balanced literacy really became a very, the most popular approach to teaching reading, for instance. And balanced literacy, while it does not shun phonics or phonemic awareness or any of, those things, it is not at the core of balanced literacy, and it's not at the base philosophy of balanced literacy. Whole language is at the base philosophy of balanced literacy. And so when you have what the literature would say is about 70%, I think in 2001, 2002, 70% of those surveyed across the United States, a sample size of, I don't know what the sample size was, indicated that they teach in a balanced literacy world. That's a very different approach than doing a structured literacy approach, which is a little more, it's heavier focus on the foundational elements, heavier focus on knowledge development, vocabulary development, all of that. It's very intentional, very explicit and direct in its instructional practices. And both of them, work for teaching kids to read. I think the data suggests that 30% of learners, 30% of individuals will read no matter what you do. They just grab a hold of that. That supports a whole language approach. And then there are an additional 50% who need to have that structure. So if 50% have to have the structure to be supportive and 30 will learn no matter what's the tool you're going to use to get that 80%? 80% is the core, is what you should have in your core instruction. That goes over into what we used to call RTI. It still can be called RTI, but MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. You want your core, you want your baseline instruction to meet the needs of at least 80% of your population. And then you have the rest of the population who that meets their needs, that gives them a foundation, but they might need more time and more instruction or a different type of instruction. And so then from there, you'd have intensive instruction for kids who are, well behind that grade level area.
Well,
So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to consider, and there's a lot more to it than what I'm saying. I'm trying to be as condensed as possible.
Given the complexity, are you concerned about not being able to come to a consensus, or?
I don't know as though we need consensus. I
Yeah,
think
for
we need to
decision.
have the ability to get something that we're comfortable moving forward with, and to be able to know that there's going to be professional development or support, that we're going to be supported for years to come. And implementation does not happen in 1 year. It does not happen in a month. It happens over time. Any choice that is made is going to require some changes. If you went with a basal program, which is an all-encompassing program, And they will say, the companies that create those, you need to get the results that they suggest will take place. You need to do things exactly as they have them laid out. That means, in this case, that we would have to consider not doing things like Heggerty foundations, programs that we have had in our school system that work, that are research-based, Orton, Gillingham, Wilson, any of those that any educators would know that terminology very well. That's something teachers that I've talked to are very proud of, that they're good at, that they've had a lot of support with, and that they've done well with. There are other, what we call knowledge-based programs. That's where most people are going toward right now. All of Massachusetts, knowledge-based programs, all of Connecticut, the whole country is looking at that, because it's the philosophy that not only are you learning to read in order to read to learn, you believe that they believe, and the programs are designed that you can, while learning to read, still learn content. And so as those are built and designed around their newer types of programs, they're designed around the shifts that are laid out in the nation would call it the Common Core standards. We would call it the College and Career New Hampshire adopted standards. And so they're all built to meet that. So there's more social studies, there's more science involved in some of the content as well. Some of those programs are all encompassing, like a Basel would be, which they say use our stuff verbatim, what it is. Others provide certain aspects of literacy. I think Deanna talked during their budget season about Scarborough's rope. They showed a picture about the complexity of reading. Some of the programs ask that you use research-based programs for the phonics, the phonemic awareness, and so forth, the fundamental foundational skills. So they would use things like geodes, foundations, Heggerty, all of the same type of philosophy, same type of research behind it. So you have to kind of choose. You have really got 2 or 3 choices. All of them takes work. Maddie, excited about it? Excited about reading?
Thrilled.
You're thrilled. Awesome. Great.
If 50% will learn to read with help,
Yep. With the correct help.
with the
Yes.
correct help, and
Yeah.
30% will learn to read no matter what.
Yeah.
What's the situation of the other 20%?
So 10 to 15% would need to have extra support. So let's pretend, just for time's sake, that the core instruction happens within an hour each day. Then these other individuals, you would assess, you'd find out where their needs are at. You would give targeted intervention on top of the core instruction. So they, during the day, would have another 20 minutes perhaps, so maybe another half hour. And then those who are in that 10 to 15% usually have higher needs. And so they may not be on grade level. It is possible that some learners will never be on grade level, but they can still increase and improve. And so you would have those added supports and then some. And many of those students would have some documentation as pointing as to what their goals are specifically for them as individuals. Yep.
And for those students, I'm presuming that the testing that is provided through Ames Web is very helpful to identify.
So
That's
part of
perfect.
this whole process is the assessment tools that we put into place this year. So Ames Web meets the needs, all the needs that we have for the legal requirements we have around dyslexia screening. We are actually sending our administrators over to Lionheart on, I think, the first week of April to do all their dyslexia screening for all of the kids from Ringe and Jaffrey. Even though it's a regular ed process, and we're responsible for special ed elements. That somehow has been ours. It's unfortunate. They should really, if they're going to support their kids with that data, they should, do it, but it's okay. We're going over there. We're happy to do so. We care about the kids in our community and we're going to get them the information they need, and we do have the tools. So we'll bring the Chromebooks over. We have them all loaded up. All the names are all loaded in our system already, separate from our school, so they don't get mixed, but we'll go over and do that. And so, yes, Ames Web is important.
So we're providing Chromebooks for the kids. just
We're
during
not,
the
we're not
10
giving them.
For the day.
Yeah,
Just for the-
for the
Is that-
brief time period. Yes, we're not giving them technology. But to do it in an efficient way, we need to have.
Yeah.
We need to have.
I have a quick question.
This is how it goes. It just goes, and there's so much that's happening.
We
Yep.
have this fantastic new sign,
We do have, it's a beautiful sign.
right? And
It's not beautiful, it's tasteful.
we're
Right.
hoping that we have a CTE building in front. Can that sign be moved?
These can be taken off.
Okay,
Yeah.
told you it was quick. Thank you.
John, you look like you got something else.
I do, and I'm gonna shut up. Let's keep
So John's gonna shut up, but would anybody else like to ask Ruben a question before we move on to the consent agenda?
I'm just dying to know what else John wants to say.
Lisa.
Yes,
We'll save it for next
yes,
time.
yeah.
Excellent. All right, so if there's nothing else, thank you, Ruben, for the thorough superintendent's report and discussion of literacy.
Thank you,
I've
Natalie.
certainly
Thanks,
learned.
baby.
You've driven Maddie out of the room.
Yep.
So moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, the consent agenda. So on it this week, we have a number of manifests, 3 budget transfers. One of them's quite large. I think may warrant a discussion. A field trip approval, 2 resignations, the approval of the budget report, and the stipend list. So does anyone have any questions or discussion on the consent agenda this week?
Yes, so we're not gonna do a motion first, we're gonna go right to discussion?
Um,
I'm cool, whatever, I just don't wanna go out of order.
yeah, let's have some discussion first and then we can.
Great. Personnel
we can-
changes, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's figure out what that is. I was disappointed when I opened the document and provided no information on what that actually meant or where the money's coming from or anything. So it was like, oh, there's a document here. It said nothing. So can we get information on what this $1.5 million transfer is and where the money's coming from?
Yes. So that's 1 million, well, 1.5 million, but 1,511,000 to this, it's really the shifting monies from some personnel accounts to other ones, just to make sure that the money's in the right locations. But I would ask that if she'd be willing to, for our business administrator, Chief Financial Officer, Carrie Shields, to be able to provide that information.
Yes, so typically we would not do a budget transfer for salaries and benefits. That's just not what we normally do. We did do one very large one last year as well. Most often, some lines will be over budget and some will have extra funds in it. This year, we're just shifting the money around based on personnel changing that have happened. So like, this is not atypical for funds to be in different spots because we have to do our budget so far in advance. So people resign after we've done our budget, people retire. There's open enrollment for benefits. People change their benefits. When we have new hires, they could pick different benefits than what the person before them was budgeted for. Special education, a lot of times will be shifting their staff around to cover IEPs and needs. So a lot of this is just shifting the money that has already been budgeted to where it's needed so that some budgets aren't over budget and some don't have excess funds.
Would
The
it,
board typically would not see salaries and benefits because you usually only approve purchases. So this is not a typical budget transfer, but due to the size, it comes to school.
wouldn't, you talked about like switching from school to school. So if like a paraprofessional was budgeted for, you know, a high school task and they maybe moved to a middle school task or an elementary school task, would that be an example of this type of transfer? So really the same position? Because I know we haven't really changed many positions, but that would be an
Right.
example of something that would impact this, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda or a motion, perhaps?
I do
John?
have one thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask that we remove the resignations, retirements, because there are some issues that still have to be resolved so that we can bring those forward.
Okay, so remove both of them? from the
I think
consent
it's fine to
agenda?
remove the category for now.
Remove the
Yep,
category?
We'll bring
Do you
that.
want to address it later in the meeting or at a separate meeting?
I think that the next meeting will be fine.
Next meeting would be fine. All right. So we'll remove the resignations from the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda as modified.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All
I
right,
can do that.
thank you very much, Christine, for seconding. Any further discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as modified to remove the resignations and retirement section, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And abstaining? Okay, so the consent agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0 to 0. Next up, we have meeting minutes. I hope that everyone has had the chance to review the meeting minutes from March 4th, 2024.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from March 4th.
All right, thank you, Lisa, for making that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. Any discussion or questions on the meeting minutes from March 4th? All right, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from March 4th, 2024, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm an abstain.
And we have one abstention. So the meeting minutes are approved by a vote of 6-0 to 1. Next up is the action items for which we have the 2024-2025 calendar. We previewed this at the last meeting. And I'm assuming we're looking for an approval at this meeting, Ruben?
Yes, so we looked at it last meeting. I've gone back to some of the individuals who helped craft this or have input, and they've given it the okay. And so we'd like to go and approve this if that's possible, unless you have some objections to some areas or things that you want us to go back and adjust. And then after that, I would like to ask the board to entertain a motion on the end of the school year this year. I have some suggestions.
And this is the same calendar that we reviewed at the last meeting, no changes? I see the date or revision date there, but just to confirm.
I believe it's the same one. Yep.
So Lisa, I can see you have a question.
It's supposed to
or
be the same
comment.
one.
Okay, yeah, just checking.
So, let's talk about the 2 weeks off.
Yep.
And this coincides with our regional calendars as the other school boards in our region are doing exactly the same, giving 2 full weeks. And my concern and my question is this does take away 2 days. It is my understanding that it takes away 2 regular paid days for non-exempt staff or hourly staff, meaning basically our paras. And that's for teachers. This doesn't affect us because, or them, I say us because I'm a teacher in another district, but I'm cool because they're adding days. So this makes days, but that's not the case for the paras. And so my question is there a way that we can compensate? Find the funds to give them funds for those 2 days. This is, as somebody who had been an hourly paid school employee, you need every cent. You watch that. And yes, it's great having 2 full weeks off, but truthfully, this time frame is very difficult to fund. And so is there a way that we can find compensation for them? Or is there a way that we could give an optional paid PD day on one of the teacher PD day or 2 of the teacher PDs? Is that an option? So at the end of the school year, if paras wanted to make up those days with paid professional development, the staff could always be trained. We can always use more training for them. So that's my question. Is there's some way that we can make this more equitable financially for people?
It's my understanding that this is governed by a contract approved by the legislative body. And I think that this falls to change that. I don't know what we would have to do to change that. Okay, go to the New Hampshire Labor Relations Board and find out, but I'm not sure that there's a lot that we can do given that they're covered by a collective bargaining agreement.
So let me ask, are they a set number of days? And so are we cutting those days? So where
No,
are those
they
days
would-
being found? So maybe I'm mistaken if we're not cutting the days.
Well, I think there's 2 things. The number of days, their total number of days worked here, is on this calendar. So if they don't work 2 days, then the calendar the school year goes 2 more days. The school year would be 2 days shorter if we, for instance, took 2 days off of this. So they work the same number of days. I think your concern is that's a 2-week period of time without pay.
Mhm.
Now, the board did negotiate over this last time some increases in holidays for that bargaining unit, that group in particular. And I do think 1 or 2 days is within that time frame. I don't know if you recall, Carrie, whether it was like Christmas and Christmas Eve. I mean, I could pull
I'd have to
up the
it but
contract if we
I
want.
believe it was Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's, but
Okay,
I
yeah, so Christmas and New
probably
Year's, I
pull
think
up
it
to
was,
confirm that.
it's definitely Thanksgiving, yep. So whereas I think a couple of years ago, they didn't have any, then it went to 1, and then
So during this
That's up to
2-week
3.
period, there'd be
there would be a
2
couple,
paid
there would be a couple
holidays for this.
paid holidays, yes.
And if,
But also to answer your question, if there are PD days that are, that they're not required to go to, but like it would be extra because we have extra days for, staff and stuff like that. We often do give the opportunity to be involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
And so is that part of the reason why graduation is later in 2025 than it is in 2024? Part of the reason is because we're basically adding 2 days in June of education because it's earlier in 2024 this year.
That, there may be another day that's in there. Yeah, that's a little different.
It's okay, we can postpone that for a while. I'm ready for that graduation day. Get back a couple of years.
For next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's fine.
Talk about the other one. Elizabeth.
Then I'll make a motion to accept the calendar for 2024-2025 as written.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have second? Charlie's going to second. Any further discussion on next year's school calendar? All right, if there's no further discussion, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the Jaffrey Range Cooperative School District 2024-2025 school calendar as submitted, please indicate by voting aye. Aye. All those opposed? And abstentions? So the calendar is approved by a vote of 7-0. And Ruben, did you want to talk about
Mhm.
the other calendar item now?
Yeah, let's pull that right up. So this is this year's approved calendar. And we have had one snow day. And so what I'm suggesting, our final day, I suggest that we let people know that graduation will be on the 7th. So we make that decision. The 7th would be, we were also saying, just like in this one that you just approved, the last, although it's written on that one, the last day for pre-K would be on the same day that the high school graduates. Giving them a couple of days toward the end of the year to be able to do some visits, meet with families with incoming kids for the next year, do some screenings, things of that nature. So, and then everyone else, kindergarten through grade 11, I guess you would say everyone else, would be ending on the 12th this year, putting that day there, and which would make the unencumbered day not on the 17th, but would be on the 13th for teachers. If we could do that, we can get that information out and people know when they can start planning their vacations at the end of the year. And it not going into the next year. I mean, is it possible that we're gonna have another snow day or whatever? Well, even if we do, we're gonna meet the number of hours. We're not gonna be in a bad shape that way. Necessary in elementary is the one you want to always look for because they need to have more. But, or I should say, they have a shorter day, so we have to make sure that we get the number of days in. And I don't know what the likelihood is of having another snow day anyway, but we'll, it's possible. I'm sure we'll get like a 4-foot storm in the beginning of April, right when the spring season starts.
So I'll make a motion
Usually
to
does.
approve the changes to the school calendar. So the last day of school is the
Wednesday the 12th,
12th.
which makes the unencumbered day the 13th for staff.
Sounds good. Thank you, Charlie, for making the motion. Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of Charlie's motion to set the dates on the end of this school year, including graduation?
Also, just along with that, we typically have the last day a half day. The 12th. I didn't know if you wanted to make that or you just want to, I can just do it. Whatever you'd like to do. That's what we've been.
Is that, I think that's what we had planned initially anyways.
yeah.
I'm seeing people nodding, so I think we can just
Nothing's gonna happen on Monday and Tuesday.
continue with that plan.
Getting ready for the talent show.
Yeah.
So all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed? And abstentions? All right, so that passes again by a vote of 7-0. So we've addressed two calendar items. Ruben, I'm assuming that's it.
It's the only calendar items we need to do.
Excellent. Item number 9 on the agenda is policy. So Lisa, we have 3 policies to discuss, so I will hand it over to you.
Cool. We could put up policy KHB, please. So this is for second reading, and we wanted to clarify 2 policies, basically. Did the removal get on this? Did we remove the other one last time? We removed the other one last time.
I don't keep track of this.
Yeah, it must have been last time we removed it for the first reading. Okay. So this is the updated conglomeration of 2 policies, one on advertising and one kind of more about publicity. We felt that they, even though the words are quite synonymous, they both kind of addressed areas that had some recent concern. So this kind of clarified, and I think opens up some abilities for us to accept areas of advertising that might help us to fund more and not be quite as strict in how we preclude community organizations and small businesses from supporting our efforts. And so I hope that you guys have had a chance to look at this, but we'd like this to go through. Where our hope is that this will create more of a small business and community interaction and ability to be able to have cool conversations about how we can support each other. Vague enough? I mean, it's a policy. You know, we just wanted to, what was there before was old, 2005. And it really was very strict against how we were using stuff, but we really also wanted to make sure we were still protecting our students from exploitation. And hopefully this does that.
So I know we dealt with this policy. There's one particular meeting I'm thinking about. Were there any kind of lessons learned that you took from, the issue that we had addressed with, advertising in the school that you took from that experience and incorporated into this policy? Do you think it addresses some of those issues that we had there, or was the existing policy sufficient and it was more just about following the policy?
Not at all. No, the existing policy was not sufficient whatsoever. The existing policies were not sufficient. And we absolutely took, that the conversations that happened into account, and realizing we need to have some way of accepting the role of small businesses in supporting our students, and more than just a yearbook blurb. We need to be able to, if there's a business or a large business that wants to help us create these CTE programs and wants to be known for doing that, I mean, yes, we want those options. And so we want to be able to have these conversations without compromising the integrity and the pride that we have in our school. We don't want a big Snickers sign, out by, sorry, Nestle, but we don't want, there's things we absolutely don't want. We don't want our, billboards everywhere, but we have to be able to say our small businesses are welcome here, and let's have these conversations about some creative ways that we can do that. So absolutely, those conversations we had a couple months ago influenced this. We also really want to make sure that we are not exploiting our students or allowing any form. We are in a social media time. And we really need to, and in a huge time of financial exploitation. And we need to make sure that we're keeping updated in our language and our intention.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions on this policy?
So,
Okay, please.
first reading. Or the
I think these are second reading.
second reading.
Yeah.
Good.
And I have to reiterate, I was still today, it's been back and forth, being able to access the policies online. And I really need to, again, strongly, for the third school board meeting, ask that these really be addressed, that we be able to have access to these. So just to. The next policy.
So, but can I just ask you about what's happening with that? So the policy database has been malfunctioning? or-
Correct. The district policy
District,
database
right,
is
right, right.
malfunctioning.
Because I've used it a couple of times recently and it's worked, but it doesn't always work.
Yep, and I
It-
just tried
up
to
and-
use it
up and
again
down.
and I couldn't get into it now.
Working, yeah,
No.
so I have a workaround for this particular building that while Mike's working on.
Can I ask about this? There's that ruling. And I'm struggling to put it all, access it all in my head, but, the name, image, likeness ruling that allows student athletes to receive financial compensation, not just in college, but in high school. Have you heard about this, Lisa? It's
It's governed by the New Hampshire NHNI.
Name, likeness,
yeah,
it's called name, image, and likeness, so that's what colleges are.
right, but
NHIA.
it applies to high school now as well, is my understanding. So I want to make sure that before we approve this policy, that it fits in with that. Because I'm not certain how they fit together, but it does allow students to be involved in the promotion of a business wearing their jerseys or not wearing their jerseys. I can't.
Where's this from?
This is from, I actually researched this when the issue came up about the posters.
What's the source for New Hampshire? Because most of New Hampshire, these issues are covered by the New Hampshire
The athletic,
High School
right.
Athletic Association.
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had not heard that.
No, and we had looked at the New Hampshire School Board Association policies and in updating this, and there was no update regarding any of it was pretty firm about the publicity,
Okay.
the photograph and publicity.
It's in the papers too. Whoops.
Okay.
Here, high school athletes have new opportunities to be compensated for their athletic skills as long as their endorsement does not mention their school or the NHIAA, and that's from the Concord Monitor on January 16, 2023.
Yeah,
So
so
as long as they don't mention the school.
Yeah, and our
Okay.
policy says no, the children of any school within the school district shall be employed. Yeah, I think that we're
Okay.
fine as long as it's not, school related.
thank you.
And so I'm going to go back and say that this is actually our first reading. I had to do some backtracking. So this is our first reading of KHB. KHB is our current policy edited and taking into account the next policy, JJG. Policy JJG is redundant now, and we are asking this to be rescinded.
Because it was melded into the other
It was
one.
incorporated more accurately
Yeah.
and more efficiently.
So it's still. Yeah, still there, it's just in the other one.
Yep.
Added.
So regardless, I would like JJG to be rescinded tonight. And ask for that not to be sent for second reading, and then let's hold on to the K one for a second reading.
I'll make a motion to rescind the JJG.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of rescinding policy JJG, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, policy JJG is rescinded by a vote of 7-0 to 0.
The next policy that we added to the agenda is policy BIB, and I can't put that up because I can't have access, but Ruben, I sent you a spreadsheet. I do have access to the projector. I didn't know if it was you or Alex.
I have the access to projector.
Great. Would you mind putting the spreadsheet that I shared with you up? So this is a spreadsheet that the board has saw last December when we're doing budget talks.
Did you just email it to me or?
I did email it to you.
Okay.
Yep, tonight. It's called Comparison of School Board Stipends. So, last
Policy.
April, I had to go back to April minutes. A year ago, we had the conversation of school board stipends and timing.
It's policy BIB, Charlie,
BIB.
as in
Sorry, I
bib.
thought it wasn't.
We added it to the agenda. We had this conversation last April about the timing of school board stipends and the and an increase in stipends. And so through May, I contacted Conval, Winchester, Hollis Brookline, and MRSD to get their stipends. And a couple of them, Conval and MRSD, I know of, increased since this timing. Their stipends are higher than what's listed here. Currently, our school board chair and school board members each get $500 stipend a year. As you can see, that's quite a bit lower than anyone in our region. And so the policy committee agreed to an increase, and the increases are in bold. For the school board chair and school board member, we did not increase the treasurer, deputy treasurer, or clerk at this time. But we, in line with many other school districts, actually all of the other school districts, we felt the school board chair deserves a slight increase in rate than regular school board members. They do a lot more as far as communication with the superintendent and ability to be, kind of available, just as an availability more so than regular school board members. So we thought that warranted an increase. In December, we brought this to the finance committee at our board hearing, at our budget hearing, and asked for the increase to $3,200 into the budget, and that was our budget went through. And so now we are looking for the board to edit policy BIB to reflect these increases. This is a policy that actually does state the amount that people are paid for the stipends. So if we had the policy up, we could see that, but this would change we would continue to be, get the stipend in November as we agreed to last year. And the increase would go through. I don't think that's me.
Any discussion on what Lisa has proposed here?
When will this be retroactive to?
But I tried. I swear to you, I tried.
Sorry, just kidding. Just kidding.
So is it something that will,
So Lisa, are you proposing we approve this now, or are you going to come forward to with the revised policy and approve it at a
It's already in the
future meeting?
budget. I would like to approve it now.
So it would,
checking what? What's she checking?
She's checking if they did what we'd asked in December and put it in.
so while they're checking, the proposed is for those who are, because I can't pull it up right now, but Charlie can. So that works out well. So it would read, each board member and district officer will be paid an annual stipend as follows. School board member, it would now go from 500, it would be 1,000. Treasurer would remain at 3,000. Assistant treasurer, 1,000. You would need to add school board chair, 1,200. So that's not, that language isn't in there at all. So That would go above the school board member probably. And then stipends will be paid on the first payroll in November. The district clerk is 500. Payment for services rendered in the fiscal year will be included on the payroll manifest immediately following the annual school district meeting. Yep. So again, the proposed change.
She's the speaker.
Oh,
Um, Yes, I did look up the budget and we did not increase the budget for the stipends this year. In my recollection, of course, I don't have minutes in front of me, was that during the budget discussions, it was decided not to increase the stipends because we had originally put them in. And then the board said that we were not going to increase the stipends for the members.
I know, I'm not. That, no. My recollection is the discussion was that this was going to be coming up and we asked for the increase to prepare for it. We've had, and we mentioned it at a finance meeting too, at the most recent finance meeting. We had said this is all set and we got the confirmation, if I'm not mistaken, that this was all set. Before the, let's see, I'm not pleased.
Carrie, this is a lot of work.
It's my recollection,
Yeah.
recollection as well, Lisa.
Yeah.
Is that we did address this issue because I was one that was concerned about it. And Ruben verified that it was in the budget. So we held off doing
Yeah.
anything about the policy until after the budget was approved. So it's my recollection that we were operating under the
understanding that it was.
understanding that it's in the budget.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Then it got taken out.
No.
What are you talking about?
That being said, the board still has the ability to do this. 3,200 is
It doesn't make sense to what they
is-
just said.
in the budget.
Is.
My point is 3,200, we can
Find it.
find that in the budget to transfer into those areas. If you put that into policy, that is what we would do.
Right.
Charlie, I am looking at you because that wasn't how we,
What?
the intention was the voters were going to vote for this.
Yeah,
And that's why we waited on saying anything.
We waited a year for this. I know it seems like a little thing, but truthfully, this was a big thing, you know?
it was supposed to be in the budget. And we waited for the voters to approve it. Approve it with the budget, approve the budget with it in there, so.
Yeah, we could have found the money. This is $3,200. We could have found the money anytime. It's,
We're
yeah,
trying to be very transparent.
we're trying to be very transparent.
We are the minutes, so shall we?
The minutes from the December 2nd budget meeting for the school district. It says the increase for the stipend for board members, which has not increased in many years. This is enshrined in policy. We are out of step with the other districts. This is under, by the way, district-wide and SAU priorities. And this is widely stated that the policy committee is recommending an increase of $500 for school board members, an additional $200 for the board chair. The committee does not recommend an increase for the treasurer, assistant treasurer, and clerk. Iker stated that it has been over 20 years since these amounts have been increased. That's the whole discussion. There's no action taken at that part. So if other things happened in the finance committee after this, I don't have finance committee notes. Those are the minutes of that meeting, the December 2nd meeting.
So I mean, that would mean there was a discussion of the intention to adjust the budget.
So it sounds like that was the intent, and I trust that Charlie and Lisa, that those discussions were had and agreed upon, and I think that and they were discussed at a public meeting, right, at our budget hearing, so whether that seems like it may not have got in there. I agree with Ruben that certainly that we've held off on this and we've intentionally tried to put in the budgets to get voted on. If that didn't happen, then I think that we are empowered to make that
Mhm.
decision, certainly. And I'd like to know what the rest of the board thinks about that. I think,
I understand that that's what, that we have the power and we can do this, but I feel like the pain is from the fact that we try to be so transparent, try to talk about it so many times and hold off until this very specific meeting. So that it didn't look like we were like, oh, we've got the power, let's give us more money. Like we were trying to follow everything perfectly. And that it didn't happen. So that's the part that stings.
May I chat?
absolutely.
Okay, I think that my recollection is that the board wanted to move forward with this. We had every intent to put that in the budget. It was stated that we would do that. That's being transparent. If it's not in that specific line, it's in the budget. It's whether we'll have to transfer $3,200. I think we can do that. I suggest you get on board with some more districts.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I will make a motion to make the adjustment to the board stipends, as discussed.
I think actually what we're looking for is, this is a policy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
BID. This is the first reading of the policy, is that correct? First thing we would have to do before we vote would be waiver a second reading. Right, and then we could vote on it. So if the board wants to take it as a first reading and then come back on the second reading, the next meeting and address it then, that's fine. It's up to you, whether you want to waive it second reading or not.
Actually, I think as long as we have a policy of having a first and second reading, well, why not do it like that? You had a good discussion tonight. I would
So
say,
waive the second.
yeah, well,
No,
No,
I think what John's saying is that have the second reading per our normal policy.
Oh,
give the changes in case there's any public that
Yeah.
would like to
write it.
put in.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So is there a motion?
Yep.
so withdrawing the motion, yeah.
So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting for second reading.
Mhm.
That's policy BIB. And KHB will also be back for the second reading next meeting.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for all your work on these policies. I know you put a lot of time and effort in it's detailed, so I do appreciate it. Do you have any other policy issues to discuss? No? All right. Moving on to board committee updates. Are there any board committee updates since our last meeting?
Education didn't meet, just due to change of board, we decided to hold off. So we'll meet again next month.
Is that what we're gonna do?
What's that?
Hold off. Brother,
Well,
I guess,
yeah,
I agree. I don't know who's gonna be on the committee, so.
right. So the larger discussion is, right, we need to set like new committees. So I guess before we do that, are there any other or have a discussion of that? Are there any committee updates since last meeting that need to be brought up?
The wellness committee met, and I'm trying to find my notes, I'm sorry. Because we have a walk to school day coming up in the spring, and I'm trying to, John, you weren't at that meeting, so it's all on me. To find out when that date is, but I will get that. And the triennial report was completed. I believe Heather Lindstad said that while the report demonstrates that we have a lot of students participating in activities, it would be more helpful to have the building principals involved in that or administrators to be involved in that report, because she felt like there was numbers that weren't being reported on. And we talked about the student garden, which is, if anybody has had the opportunity to be in the cafeterias in this building, they are thriving with plant life. As we're waiting for this temperature to warm up enough outside for the plants to move outside. They're growing in the cafeterias, which I think is just beautiful, but I guess I'm inclined to see that as beauty. And there's also a very nice cutting garden in the staff lounge, the teacher's room. So teachers can take some scissors and add some fresh greens to their lunch at any time that they're interested. I think that's cool. Yeah,
That's really
it was cool. And the Jaffrey Food Pantry has said that they will accept any seedlings or harvest that comes out of the school garden. The Jaffrey Food Pantry is now feeding a very large number of families, and so they're looking for that type of donation. Sweet.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine. Are there any other committee updates before we move on to the topic of, I guess, so I'll turn to you guys a little bit on this. I think last year at this time, what we did was kind of surveyed everybody as far as which committees they'd like to be on. I propose kind of doing the same thing this year. I can organize that, whether it be an email or a poll. Some of you have been on certain committees for a long time and would like to continue. I'll certainly respect that. We'll come to a decision as a board. Some of you may have been on committees for a long time and want to move on to something else. I think all those opportunities are available. We'll send out a communication in between now and the next meeting, and we can discuss as a board at this next meeting and make sure all those committees are filled. Again, addressing hopefully everybody's preferences as to which committees they'd like to be on.
Chris, do you want to run through what the committees are?
I would if I had them.
Yeah, I know. I
was trying to like show me up on my
No,
first.
I'm not, I had the same problem, my friend. But I know we've got a finance committee, Christine Wellness, policy committee, education,
Goals.
communication, goals,
Facilities.
and facilities.
I think that's all of them.
And the facilities and finance are pretty active, fairly active. Well, a bunch of them are fairly active. There's some a little bit less active.
Manifest is one.
The manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what the manifests are, I'll say this for Sandra. Somebody from each town has to come in and sign the manifest each week. And, sometimes they're large and, you go through them and try and see what's in there and make sure that everything looks okay. But one of us from each town does that. It's usually once a week.
It's an opportunity for someone to go in and be able to see what money is spent, where it's going, what's being purchased. The big ticket items are usually similar from month to month. Transportation and a district placement. Right now, some of the HVAC work. Health insurance.
I would like to talk about a little change.
Yeah.
Okay. So the goals committee traditionally, in my 3 years here, has met once quarterly, which we have not met for 6 months now, which has worked for me. Too many reasons. But I was watching other, and I kind of see a couple of other districts and what they do. And their goals committee focuses a little differently. Right now, ours has been focusing on the strategic plan and kind of getting updates on that. And I'm thinking some things that we kind of talked about last year on a statewide level really fit better. And that's kind of what I'm seeing some other school districts do. It's more, rather than a goals committee, it is a school board goals portion of their meeting where they talk about, here is a state initiative that's come up, or this is a legislative action that we want to talk about. Do we want to participate in this? The delegate convention that comes up. What are the policies that they're discussing? What do we want to vote on? Those become more of the goals. Really it is a school board goals.
Yeah.
And what we want the school board to be active in and really focusing on. What areas of strength do we want? What areas of weakness do we feel like we need more communication in? And I really think that we want to do that route because the strategic goals are being covered in education. They're being covered in finance, they're being covered in facilities. They're being discussed in those. And so it's great to have that overarching, but truthfully, I want the overarching here for all of us. And each time the goals committee has seen this strategic plan, we're like, everybody should be seeing this. Like we should have a regular time, maybe a quarterly time where instead of the superintendent's message, we're going to have a half an hour now just to look at our goals, or every spring and fall, have a time where we do a strategic goal review. That's probably better than quarterly, but I'm wondering if we want to disband the goals committee and have those items put into the regular board meetings at set times and really focus our goals on strategies we want the board to be doing. Up for discussion. It's not 9 o'clock yet, right? No, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah, I had some of those similar thoughts about, now that I thought a little bit about being board chair and things that we could do. And I wasn't sure, I was actually planning on discussing it in board matters, but I'm not going to repeat too much of what you said, but exactly that, and setting our goals as a board, right? Those goals that we're talking about in the goals meeting are right long-term. We're constantly advancing them, but what are our specific, right? A lot has changed over the years, even last year to this year, in the educational environment in the school. So what are our goals as a board? I think we should define those, publish them and check in regularly. I don't know the mechanism, it could be in board matters, it could be a separate committee. I do think it should be, here at this meeting that we discuss those regularly. But first, I think the first course of action is to agree on what those are. And I was planning on discussing that a little bit later. But as far as, the goals committee, I'm open to, however the board feels about it. I know I've sat in on one of those meetings, but
I like what you're both saying. I think it's a good idea.
I think it's good. I think it's a good idea.
So you guys think it's a good idea to maybe ask Ruben to, instead of doing a weekly kind of update, to take a spring and a fall strategic plan update and give us a good, here it's in depth. Maybe you could get it to us ahead of time, Ruben, and give us highlights for the public, but get, some things to us ahead of time on it. Or simply say, could you guys take a look at this and update? Yeah, I've made some updates. Take a look and see some areas, and we can do it on our own time. And then highlights for the public. Is that something that you guys think would be useful?
so you're talking about, again, removing that quarterly goals meeting and doing like a twice a year update, right?
Yeah, twice a year public update. They're all public. It's just.
Yeah.
Usually it's 3 people that's sitting in a room.
Right, and not
hearing
recorded,
really
not
cool things.
recorded necessarily.
I think
It's
that's
great. I think it also keeps everybody updated and really, again, transparency. It shows
Mhm.
what's been done, what's going on, what's in progress.
It's, each time I've gone to those meetings, this document is exciting. It really is. I know, I maybe it's just me, but seeing the progress in such a broad area, Like just seeing, okay, here's where we're going with testing, here's an assessment, here's what happening facilities. It's just a really, it's very dynamic. There's nothing static in this strategic plan. And it does align with our constant request for a facilities strategic plan. And, you know, this is going to keep that up in our faces. We really want this long-term, you know, plan happening. So it seems to make sense to me now.
It's also graded on a 1 through 4 scale.
I think I'm hearing two different things.
Okay,
I think I'm hearing on one hand, a semi-annual update on a strategic plan, what we need to do to move forward. And on the other hand, I'm hearing something about along the lines of the board needs to determine what it needs to accomplish in the next year, which is a short-term activity. And to do that, you need to have a discussion about not only what it is you want to accomplish, but how you're going to accomplish it. Who's going to be responsible? Because if you don't have a responsible person, nothing ever gets done. And some timelines on what's going to be done, and then support resources, what kind of resources you need to do it. So I'm hearing two different
yes.
things when it comes to those things. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yep.
with your two completely, one very long-term and strategic and the other very board-specific and targeted, I think.
Yep.
So I think we're on the same page there.
Does that need to be a motion?
I don't know if we do. I think what we can do is maybe next week when I come back with, send out a survey, maybe I'll take the goals committee off of there. And I think, we as a board can come up with a plan over the next, few weeks and few meetings to identify, first what our goals will be, right? Our priorities as a board. I know there's a lot of potential there for a lot of different items. I know I have my ideas. I'm sure everyone else has their own ideas. I think those are things we talk about, make sure they're, limited and agreed on. We're not going to, it should be over the course of this year what our priorities are, and we'll decide that. And then to Charlie's point, going forward, identify, what we're going to do. It's nice to say these are our priorities. But what actions will we take as a board in order to address them over the next year? And then hold ourselves accountable to that, right? It'll be up to each one of us to make sure that if we identify these goals, if we have some actions, we in a public forum can hold ourselves accountable to making sure that we're moving forward on those. So not exactly sure how we'll do that, but make sure we'll have some discussion at the next meeting, certainly on what those is. And I'll ask each one of you, in between now and then to think about what those priorities are for the district this year as a board. All right.
Fantastic.
Any other board committee matters?
I just have to, the spring walk to school day is Wednesday, April 17th. Just want to put that out there. Checking and see if it's coming.
The day of the great April snowstorm.
They can walk in snowshoes.
And I'll just say, on the subject of the communications committee, I sat on the communications committee, and for a number of reasons it, kind of fallen a bit dormant. So there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of restart, reimagine that. So I think as you're thinking about, committee assignments, I think there's a lot of opportunity in order to shape the path forward on communication right now, which is, sometimes these things are a blessing in disguise, right? Instead of continuing on the same path, there's an opportunity to get some new voices in here. Honestly, I think I'm still interested in being on that committee, possibly. But I'll just make a pitch for that. Maybe if people haven't considered being on that communications committee, I think it's really important. We're doing a really good job, but I think there's a lot of potential there for impact to the school and on the community. So I'll ask you to maybe consider participating in that if you weren't already, because there are a few openings there. Okay. If there's nothing else, and I'm looking down and I'm not seeing anything else on committee updates, we'll open up for the second session of public comments.
Everybody's been made aware of their.
All right, looking around the room, getting smiles and head nods, so it doesn't seem like we have any public comments. I'll give it another 10 seconds or so. All right. So if something comes up, certainly let us know and we can go back to it. But for now, we'll move on to board matters.
I have one,
Okay, Charlie?
at one point in time, we talked about holding the board meetings in Range because of the security issues. And so I would just, if we're gonna hold them here, I'd just like to make sure that we have no activities, school activities going on during the school board meetings. The last thing I would like to have is people going back and forth and, you know, scattering all around with school functions, which is what they should be doing in the middle, in the middle of a board meeting. So I just want to make sure our calendar is such that it supports not being here. It supports being here. And if it doesn't, if there is a school function, then perhaps we ought to have it in RMS. That's just my input.
Okay.
With that in mind, if there is a school function, then the doors are open for it. And we could go back to our regular room. It's just, while there's nothing happening, then, that there's no reason not to, but if there is movement and stuff happening, then the door is open and monitored and people are around. So this is just because right now we need the door open, but there's.
Okay, that's a good option, as long as, I just had that concern.
As long as there's an option. Yep,
That
that's good.
I would request, if we continue here, that this worked out really well for us to be able to see and hear you guys, and I would request that table just be turned a little bit so we can see all of you. That way we're less.
And I don't know whether it's good or bad, but this is the first time I heard everything Ruben said.
That's why we placed you over there.
I don't know if it's good.
Any other items for board matters? I had the one that I wanted to talk about, Lisa, brought up earlier as far as setting goals. So I didn't have any other board matters to discuss.
I just noticed that there's in addition to an AHT meeting this week, there's a talent show and a staff versus learner basketball game. I assume those happen during the day, so might not be something that we can attend, but it's always nice to see an update on what is going on in the school and the opportunities for us to not only learn more about what's going on, but also to show our interest as board members by showing up.
Yeah, I know that we had, we've gone back and forth on the calendar thing, right? Whether to review the calendar, but I think that,
It was kind of cool we did that.
I don't know. I'm not going to open up that subject now about whether we should or not. But I think it's
a quick way to do that.
I really appreciate it. And I think it was the first time I received it. I got an email from David today.
Yeah.
Probably went to all the school board members. I think it's great to have that very simple, clear schedule of upcoming events. And I know that we're all very busy, but I think it certainly does make an impact when school board members are there at the events. It was really nice to hear Maddie say how she appreciated the community support. I think that was genuine, right? She's not saying that just to make us feel good. I think she was able to look up, and I was there, right? And so I could vouch for the fact that it was a big crowd. An enthusiastic audience, and the facility looked good with all the improvements that we made. And I think that I don't know why that David decided to send that out, but I'm sure that he will continue to, and I encourage him to, and for all of us to try and attend when we can.
I think we can give you a little bit of an answer around that, because we've been working on some internal communications elements. Yep.
So we're trialing School Messenger as the main communication tool, right? And the School Messenger lists are built from Alma data, which is our system of record for students. It gives the hierarchy for students to teachers to principals. The school board is in Alma as with a higher hierarchy. So right now, if David sends a message to all of Conant, you're gonna get the message. Whereas before, you were not on the Gmail list that's maintained for the school. So this is a trial right now. We can add you to all schools. Because Nikki has used it last week. Deanna's coming on board. You could start to get those, but we're just trialing right now with the 3 principals and 6 teachers to see how this works, with the hopeful goal of replacing Alma's group messaging. Not because it doesn't work, it works and it's a pretty easy tool, but it's not an email system that we can easily have visibility into. Whereas School Messenger, I can look into, or anyone who's a system admin can look in and see history very easily without getting an engineering ticket for the software company, to find out what's going on. And the principals most of them have used School Messenger in the past, and they're eager to try to roll this out. So that's why you're getting different messages, and you might have seen.
Yeah, I've seen it in School
like
Messenger as
statement.
well. Yeah.
You see, like when the email
Yep.
comes out, it has a nice header with the logo on it. It's got the right to know footer. And that's what we're working on right now. So you'll see some changes over the next couple of weeks.
So is that the plan for the other principals to do the same? Would you
Nikki's
expect that?
doing it already, but you're not on that list.
Right.
And I'll find out, we'll speak about how we incorporate the school board. It's easy. I can
Yeah.
easily add you to everything.
There's no calendar on School Messenger though, right?
No, School Messenger is just to communicate.
Yeah.
Just to send messages back and forth. And another part of this that we'll be trialing at some point is chatting, not through like direct text messaging, but through a chatting application, which has been a request, especially from athletics. That there's
Like the messaging on there, the little on School Messenger where it says, I think messaging.
Yeah, there are 2
Messages.
There's 2 different things. There's the ability to send an SMS message. Right?
Yeah.
Which would be like when Ruben or a principal sends a message out that we could also send a text message.
Yeah.
But there's a chatting app that's separate. It would be by class or club or something like that. So you could talk specifically to smaller groups.
That would be perfect because it happened again. I think we've talked about this and it happened again this year with basketball where we were all using multiple different chats.
Right. So
to
we're
communicate.
trying to get to that point, but right now we're
Perfect.
just doing this test on emails and robocalls. Like
Yeah.
Nikki did a robocall last week just to RMS, which she wasn't able to do before, but now she can do her own.
Yeah, okay.
They're all gonna be calling their own snow days and everything. There's a method to it.
It's a step-by-step trial, and as each thing passes and we get buy-in, and we'll keep rolling out different parts.
Do it after April 8th,
And what is it for?
the eclipse.
Oh.
When you were talking about, or I think we're all, I don't know. Calendars and talking about things, but I think we did that at one point.
Yeah,
where
we had done
kinda
that.
went over that.
beginning.
But I think the problem was, there's an app for a calendar that everything wasn't on, and then there were some that were up. It was like this discrepancy of what went on what calendar and who was in charge of putting what on what calendar. And so I think we did it for a while, but then we were all using a different calendar, having different information. So I'm not sure if there's a way to streamline that so that we can have a calendar that has what we need on it so that we can discuss it. Because it is neat to one, see the information, and two, just being informed on what's going on. And if we can go to things, we can, but I think that's a great thing to do. But somehow we need the same information. I love the app, but I don't think it has everything on it.
And that's maintained at the school levels. So the school doesn't put it, I'm sorry. We have a combined calendar that's displayed on the website or in the school's app for the
Yep.
website.
Yep,
All right, the district portion is maintained in the SAU, but
Okay.
each school maintains their own calendar. So
Okay.
you might get something like from a principal that says there's a concert Tuesday night, but if
okay.
they don't put it on their school calendar, it's not gonna show up there.
Oh,
And that's what was
gotcha.
happening before, it was going in like their newsletters, and not going in their calendars.
Okay,
Now personally, I could tell you, I have not followed up to see if those calendars are up to date.
yeah,
But the schools do have direction on how to keep their calendars up to date. So
I mean-
the one combined calendar should be complete.
it actually, I mean, it has everything that we've talked about, talent show, basketball game, interactive car wash and bake sale. So this might be a good one to use, the district one, like the school one.
Right, that's consolidated for
That one.
everybody.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. Pictures are coming up, guys.
Yep, the one, yeah, the app, I think it's a
Yeah.
better, I think it's a
Love it.
better, I think it's a better calendar than the one that's on here.
Yeah,
In that one has all the same information,
Yeah.
but you have to kind of go into it. This one will give you March 27th.
Yeah.
Multiple times if there are multiple, so you don't have,
multiple things.
yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's a really good
And
one.
March 27th for the good of the whole is a district-wide concert,
Yes,
which means elementary,
Yeah.
middle, high, and so we do that.
and it actually says it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's true for at least
Because it-
two of the schools, right?
It's
It should be there 3 times.
Oh, somebody's
That's
slacking.
happening-
Yeah.
That's happening at Ringe. I'm looking at your story. That's,
Yeah.
that is happening at RMS.
Yeah. On the 27th
Same.
at 6 PM. All district music concert.
Where they hold that, Yankee Stadium?
Yes, for sure.
Just appearance alone will fill the Pratt.
I know. I think
All right, so I think it's good to hear that, I think there's been we've seen the impact here and we'll continue to refine it and, maybe provide some feedback, right? Sometimes it can be too much, too little, and I think from what I'm hearing is that's what you're looking for. We're trying things out, we're looking for feedback to try and hit that. There's always a sweet spot of the amount and the organization of information, right? Too much, too little. There's probably not going to be one answer that makes everyone happy, but it's about finding that sweet spot that satisfies most people's needs. So we'll continue the conversation, certainly. Any other board matters?
No.
No? Well, the next item on the agenda, item number 14, unless anybody's going to jump in, is adjournment. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
I make my suggestion.
You got it? I second.
Okay, we have Kim and then John seconds. So all those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned.
We have a request that none of you leave until, because you in the consent agenda have
Agreed to sign this
agreed to
document.
sign this
Yes.
document.
So. 3 different copies. Right?